Hey everyone, how's it going? So today I'm going to be ranking the Mad Max movies. I got to see Mad Max, actually Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I got to see it on opening weekend with a bunch of my friends. And going into it, I had only seen Fury Road, and I saw it like many years ago, sometime around when it came out or shortly thereafter. So I decided I'd like to go back and see all the other movies. So I actually watched the other four movies with my dad. I watched the original three, which I'd never seen before, and then I rewatched Fury Road. So I enjoy watching those four with my dad, and now I've completely watched the whole series. And now I'd like to go ahead and rank them. So before I get into the ranking, two things. One, of course, spoiler warning. I definitely will be discussing, some spoilers. So if you haven't seen these movies, I definitely recommend watching them before watching my video. And then that's first thing. Second thing, as far as ratings go, this is my rating scale, or my system rather. This is the system I use that I kind of just created for my own videos and being able to rank movies and rate movies. So most of this is self-explanatory. Other than I'll go and explain zero, the worst. That doesn't mean like necessarily the worst movie I've ever seen. It just means among like the 50 or so worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And then same thing for the best, a 10. That just means among the 50 or so best movies I've ever seen. Not necessarily like number one, the best ever. And then as for mediocre and average, I know for some people those are kind of interchangeable, like synonymous words. But for me, average is kind of something with a neutral connotation, just right down the middle. Average. Whereas mediocre is a little bit below average. The way I see it, has more of a negative connotation. But anyways, that's my system for rating movies. Now let's go ahead and dive into the movies. Starting off in fifth place, I have the original Mad Max from 1979, and this is the only movie in the series that I think is not good. And I don't mean I'm not trying to hate on it. I recognize that this is a movie that was revolutionary at its time. It was breaking new ground, doing a lot of new, innovative things, and I respect it for doing that. But of course, it's just a very bare bones kind of movie, and I respect that also. That it's like really low budget, and George Miller, he's a physician, and he actually broke into filmmaking with this movie, and I really think that's a cool story that he had a totally other career, being a doctor, and then decided to be a filmmaker. At least that's as I understand it. And that's really cool, and I respect the hell out of that. That's awesome. But of course, this was his kind of like first go around. I don't know if it was his very first or one of his first. Either way, he's definitely kind of new, and he had a very low budget. And not only that, it just feels like a very unfinished product. Just the script, the story, just a lot of the things. It just feels very incomplete. A lot of key factors are missing. There's very little character development. For all the characters in the movie, including Max, and that just results in a story and just an overall movie that leaves me with very little to feel. I mean, there's very little anything to take away from, except for like the latter, like kind of tail end where, that evil biker gang, kills Max's wife and kid, and then, he goes out for revenge and kills all of them. Obviously, there's some action and some excitement and some emotion involved in all of that, but that's like the tail end of the movie. Everything before that is just very basic and kind of directionless and really, to be honest, boring. With all due respect, again, not trying to hate on it, but I just think this movie just feels very incomplete and just would need so much work to actually turn it into a story that's interesting and has characters that are really well developed. Because we really learn very little about any of these people. And Goose, in some ways, I believe that's his name, the other cop who got some kind of attention besides Max, he seemed actually a little more interesting to me than Max, but then he kind of died unceremoniously and then or at least got hurt. I don't remember if he died or just got really injured. Either way, he was out of the story at that point. Whether he was dead or just really injured, he just was totally out of the story. And I don't know, just really not much in this movie. Very incomplete, just kind of boring. And I didn't like the biker gang at all. I just thought they were really annoying and irritating. The only thing I liked about them was when Max killed them all. So they were really annoying, and overall just not that great of a movie. Nothing terrible. And again, like I said, I recognize that this, was revolutionary when it came out, and I respect, what George Miller was able to do, kind of, breaking into the industry and, during his kind of first go around here and with a low budget. I respect what he was able to do here, and I think it's cool. But with all due respect, I think this is a relatively poor movie. So I'm giving this 3 stars. So like I said, poor movie, but still I recognize, all the circumstances and what it still stands for, and the awesome saga that it was able to start. So moving on to the rest of the saga that this thing got started, I've had a really difficult time actually really debating and thinking about, um, you know, how I should rank the middle three. I have, Mad Max, the original movie, in last. It's a very obvious last place for me. And, I just feel like that's an obvious last. And then my first place is very obvious first. But the middle three have been really tricky for me. And I've been really debating it a lot myself. And there's a lot of different reasons I like them, and a lot of different reasons or a lot of different things I don't like about them. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and call it a tie. I don't want to sound kind of lame with that, but I want to kind of explain these movies, and I really feel like if I were to give a ranking, it's a ranking that could literally change tomorrow or next week or, next time I watch them. So I'm just going to go ahead and discuss them in the order, I guess, they came out. So let's go ahead and start with The Road Warrior, which is the second movie in the series. And this is a huge, huge step up from the original. I mean, now we're in like post-apocalypse, so we're out in like the barren desert with humanity's just totally broken down after like what's clearly like a nuclear like war has already happened, and most of the world, or the civilized world anyways, has been totally destroyed, and everyone's just kind of fending for themselves and building back what little of human society is left, right, after this whole nuclear war and the fallout from that, right? And it's just really exciting to see this kind of, now we're in this world, it's interesting. And the whole story with Max coming upon this village and, kind of doing business with them, and then eventually getting more like emotionally attached and involved with them and helping them out in their, goal to stay together and protect themselves and their fuel and their small, but, really tightly knit, cool society of good people still trying to, maintain, civilization, right? And trying to move to like a new location and everything, while they're trying to fight against and protect themselves against Lord Humongous and his big biker gang, who obviously have greater numbers than them and are, more equipped and are definitely a dangerous, evil threat to them. It's exciting to see, and it kind of all culminates in this really cool chase that it's the first kind of big large scale chase that ends up getting upped in the later movies, but really fun, a lot of action. Really enjoy those aspects of this movie. A lot of cool characters introduced in this one. Something, again, a huge step up from the last, from the first movie. Because that movie just, again, didn't really flesh out really any of its characters at all. In this one, you got a lot of cool characters in the village, and there's a lot of characters there. I think she's just referred to in the credits as like female warrior or warrior woman or something like that. And I actually want to take a moment. The actress who plays her, Virginia Hay, I was reading about her on IMDb, and it sounds like she's actually, unfortunately, going through a really tough battle with cancer right now. So I just want to take a moment to send all my love and support to Virginia Hay and all of her friends and family. I'm sending all my love and support to all of you, especially you, Virginia Hay, and wishing all the best for all of you, and wishing the best for you, Virginia Hay. She plays a really cool character in this movie. Really like her character, along with a bunch of the other really cool characters in this movie. I like the guy, this John Bon Jovi looking guy. I believe his name is Papagallo. He's the leader of the village. He's really cool, and I really like a lot of the things he's a great leader, just a great role model for the whole village, and he's very influential, I think, not only for them, but also for Max. Is Max really, in a lot of ways, and I'm probably going to say this a lot in this video, but Max, in a lot of ways, is hard to root for in the sense that he's just this really, like, after the first one, he's just very dedicated to being a loner. And he's just, he's a man of honor. He's a man of his word. He treats people, fairly, but he's very uninvested in other people's lives and just kind of prefers to be on his own and do his own thing and just interact with other people for practical reasons, which is just kind of how he is. But that leads to him being kind of uninteresting. And again, I'm not trying to say he's totally uninteresting. There's a lot of interesting things about his character, and I like him, but it kind of makes him harder to root for because he's someone who seems kind of like lacking a lot of drive and passion and, just a lot of other things. It's just hard to understand what drives him, what compels him to keep going other than just surviving. Which, I mean, I get it. I mean, it's a post-apocalyptic world where, I mean, you have to think about just basic survival, right? But he's a very capable person. So you think someone like him surviving, I wouldn't call it easy, but I mean, it's certainly something he can handle. It's not like he's barely surviving, you know what I mean? He's someone very capable of taking care of himself and doing what he needs to do. So he's the kind of person who would absolutely be able to think beyond basic survival and be like, okay, where am I going? What's the point of life? What am I doing? Not just today to eat food, but find water, but like, what am I doing in the greater scheme of things? What am I doing over the next week, the next month, the next year, and beyond, right? He seems like someone who could think about that. I mean, and kind of think about what he wants and surround himself with the people he wants to be with, And I get it, he's just a loner type, but I don't know, it just makes him less interesting to me. It's hard to latch onto him. Whereas the villagers, by contrast, I really respect them, that they're like this tight-knit group and they care about one another and they enjoy being with one another. They're like a, big family. And Papagallo does a lot to, lead them as a good role model of how to be a good person. He has a lot of influence on Max and kind of imparts some of that on Max. So Max eventually voluntarily works with them to help them escape without really anything in return. So, that's cool to see. And then I believe it's the gyro captain. He's kind of annoying, to be honest, in a lot of the movie, but he's also kind of funny. And I guess he ends up turning out to be a decent guy. And he ends up kind of, getting into a romantic relationship with the blonde woman in the village group. I don't remember if she had a name or not. That was listed. I don't know if she's just referred to as like blonde woman or something in the credits, or if she's given a name. I don't remember. But she was a cool character, and he ended up being pretty cool. And he ends up being the leader of the group, the group who ends up surviving and becoming, I guess, the Northern Tribe. I don't know if they were called that just after they left or if they were already called that. But anyways, he ends up being the leader of them eventually and stuff, and that's cool. So a lot of stuff with the villagers, they're cool, and how Max ends up, helping them and kind of finding more of his human heart, I guess, by meeting them. He helps them, obviously, a bunch to survive. I don't think they would have survived without Max, but they also kind of help remind him of his humanity, too. So it's interesting seeing that. I'm not a big fan of the bad guys in this movie. Lord Humongous really wasn't anything special, I didn't think. He's just kind of, if I just sum him up in one word. He's intimidating, but he's just kind of, he doesn't have that much personality. He never really ends up doing much. I mean, he's just kind of, I don't know. There wasn't really much to his character. And the Mohawk guy was just kind of annoying, kind of like a lot of the bikers in the first one. So, I mean, they were intimidating for sure and posed a threat. So they served their purpose in that sense. And they were evil. Like, I definitely disliked them. So they were very convincingly evil, which, makes it really fun to see them all get, beaten and killed, right? So, they're good in that sense, but other than that, they're not really interesting, especially when later in the series, as I'll get into, there's many more villains who are also evil and are also like, great villains to root against, right? They're great characters to root against. But they're also, I don't know, more interesting, more charming, more, intriguing, So, but overall, this is a great movie and really, it's considered like, definitely like a cult classic. A lot of people like this movie, and I totally see why. It's a really fun movie. So I'm giving this 7 stars. Very good movie. Like it. Definitely have my problems with it, like I already outlined, but it's a good movie. I definitely had fun watching this, and I could see myself watching this again in the future for sure. Honestly, all the movies, other than maybe the first, but I'd give even the first one a rewatch. If I were watching the whole series, I wouldn't watch maybe 4 out of 5. I think I'd give it a rewatch too. But moving on to Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Now, I know Thunderdome is definitely a movie that a lot of people consider the worst. Pretty much every list I see out there ranking the Mad Max movies has either the original or Thunderdome last. But I actually really like Thunderdome. I'm not saying it's the best in the series. It's not, in my opinion. But I don't see it as being so far inferior to The Road Warrior and, some of the other movies as others, as others find it to be. I think it's a fun movie. It's definitely stylistically very different, and it's the only PG-13 movie in the series, and I can see why, a lot of things about it bother people because it's like, it's very different. It's a deviation for sure, more than any of the other movies. And all the movies are very different. I mean, they're very different stories, but in terms of, I guess, like the grittiness and the kind of style, this movie is more, I mean, it still has a grit to it. It's not like, some like G movie that, I don't think, little kids be watching this or anything, but it's definitely lightened up a bit and definitely has a very 80s feel. But I like that. There's a lot of movies. I love a lot of 80s things, 80s movies, 80s music. Big rock music fan and 80s music fan. Just a lot of cool things, were created in the 80s. And this is one of them. I think this is a really fun movie. And I love Tina Turner in it as Auntie Entity. She plays very interesting villain with with a big personality and just someone only Tina Turner could play. And she also recorded 2 awesome songs for this, including the Thunderdome song that plays at the end. You Don't Need Another Hero, or We Don't Need Another Hero. I'm probably botching the title a little bit, but it's an awesome song, and really gives it the kind of 80s vibe. Again, it feels very 80s, this movie. And Mad Max, he's maybe kind of about the same as he is in The Road Warrior, but a little bit more heroic. I mean, he's definitely more here, less about kind of contracts and more like when he encounters the kind of like abandoned tribe of children. He's definitely kind of helping them more just to be a good person and help them, which is cool. I think it's like a development of his character, an evolution of his character from the Road Warrior, to see him being more willing to kind of just help for the sake of helping, And the kids, I think, are good characters. I mean, I can see why maybe some people find them annoying, but I like them. I think they're good characters, and there's a lot of them, so only a few of them really, I guess, were developed or kind of fleshed out and became characters that we actually knew. But that makes sense to me. You can't have like 50 of them all be having massive spotlights, right? But the ones who we got to see a good bit of, I think they were good characters. I think they were still like realistic as kids, like not like made too capable. I mean, they still felt very kid-like, and they needed Max's help. Someone much older, more mature, and more capable, and someone who knows a lot more about how to survive and do things in this world, right? But they were still like, able to do things and help him out and draw out some of that humanity from him, just like the village people in the last episode, or in the last movie, but also just help him out in the fights and stuff too. So they were interesting characters. I liked them, and I think then eventually, they make it out to like a war-torn, abandoned Sydney, Australia, and it was a really impressive kind of sequence just to see that. And it's depressing, but then also fills you with hope as they go there and they kind of start reestablishing some society there. And obviously, it's very bare bones and simple, but they are building a new civilization nonetheless, right? And how they put up all the lights and are remembering Max, just like the village people remember Max, like the kid, the feral kid, how he's the narrator as an adult for the Road Warrior and discusses the legend of the Road Warrior, Mad Max. The kids remember him as well. And this cool legend of Mad Max, the kind of wanderer, the loner, the Road Warrior who, had a massive impact on these people, both the villagers and the Road Warrior and the tribe of kids and in Thunderdome. So anyways, I like the whole story in Thunderdome. But I can also see where people kind of have issues with the pacing and how, like, if you divide in, like, 3 acts, like all the stuff at Bartertown and the Thunderdome fight as the first one, the second one being kind of Max finding the children and getting to know them and heading off to Bartertown, then the third act being, like, fighting at Bartertown, then the escape and chase on the train. I can see us kind of jarring. They're very different, especially that middle one is so different and kind of makes the movie kind of, I don't know, I guess the pace can be kind of weird. I get it. I see what people are saying there, and I found someone like the henchman for Auntie Entity to be annoying, like the guy who kept surviving, like just all the time, no matter like what happened to this dude. And even at the end, like he flips the bird to Max, and I don't even know if he died then. So he was annoying and just kind of stupid. And the Thunderdome fight, I mean, it was cool, but it wasn't really as fun as I thought it could have been. I do like how it did show more of Max's humanity, though, like his choice not to kill, I guess, the group of like the older guy and then like the big fighter guy, I guess we're called Master Blaster. So I think Blaster is the guy Mad Max fought. So his choice not to kill Blaster, I like that. It shows, again, Max at his heart is a good guy and he does have, code, and at his core, he's a moral guy. I like that, and it's a good moment. But other than that, I didn't find the fight that exciting. I mean, it was cool. It was unique for sure. It was fine, but considering that the movie is literally called Thunderdome, it could have been a little more epic. And then having it so early in the movie and then not having it come back again mean, again, the title is, I guess, Beyond Thunderdome, right? But I don't know. Still with Thunderdome in the title, I still feel like maybe it should have been a little more epic, and maybe they could have done it later in the movie or come back to it somehow. It would be difficult, but I don't know. I feel like with the movie being called Thunderdome, or having Thunderdome in the title, rather, they could have done a little more with it. And thinking about other things, they brought back the same actor who played the gyro captain, but actually he's a different character, as I've read online. In here, he's Jedediah the pilot, and he's actually a different character. And that makes sense, because I was thinking the whole movie, I was so confused, like, it just, there's so much of a disconnect. Like, that guy went off with the survivors from the village and became their leader, like the leader of the northern tribe, and he was like, in a relationship with the blonde woman and everything, and I don't, it made no sense to me while I was watching. Then when I read that, it makes so much more sense. He's a different character, and I mean, he was fine, but he was just kind of, I don't know, irritating, I guess. I thought the gyro captain, while he was irritating too, he had much more focus in the movie and got developed and had more of a character arc, and I don't know, it was a little more interesting, I guess. But he's not bad here either. He's fine. And overall, I enjoy this movie. I like it. So I'm gonna give this 7 stars. Very good movie, and on par with The Road Warrior. I know a lot of people disagree with me there. Definitely let me know your thoughts down below. I'm sure a lot of you disagree, but any of you do agree, let me know if you also like Thunderdome. So overall, Thunderdome, very good movie, 7 stars. And the third and final movie in this 3-way tie here, and I guess 3-way tie for second, right? So the original Mad Max, 5th place, and these are all tied for second, is Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. This movie is very different from The Road Warrior and Thunderdome, but I'm going to also give this 7 stars, very good movie, and have it in a tie, because it's just kind of, I don't know, an equal weight for me of like pros and cons compared to the other two, right? These 3 movies are all very different, but they kind of they have a lot of pros, they have some cons, but it's kind of relatively equal to me. So I really think it would be difficult for me to rank them. So talking about Furiosa, this movie serves as a prequel to Fury Road. It's not nearly as good as Fury Road, but it's still a good movie. I think it's exciting, great action, of course, just like Fury Road has. I mean, you have all the modern capabilities now, filmmaking and the technology and all the kind of stuff you need to make this really awesome, and it is awesome. And Furiosa is an excellent character. I really like Furiosa, and the 2 actresses who play her in this movie both do an excellent job portraying her and taking us on the journey of what Furiosa went through from like her childhood to young adulthood until we see her in Fury Road, and it makes Fury Road that much better because we see all this background, see what she went through and all the suffering she went through and all the stuff that developed her into the person she is in Fury Road. And through all that, she's a really good person, and that's something really cool to see, because not that Max isn't. Mad Max is a good person, but Furiosa just kind of takes it to a whole new level of someone who actually has really good character and a lot of compassion for people around her. And that's pretty impressive considering how much she's gone through and just how much hate and revenge she's been exposed to, and the whole chaotic, crazy world she is a part of, and she's coupled in this movie with a really charismatic, interesting villain, Dementus, played by Chris Hemsworth. Very interesting villain, kind of similar to Anti-Entity, in my opinion, in the sense that it's just big personality, charismatic, interesting, while also being very much evil. Definitely more evil than Anti-Entity. Anti-Entity was, I wouldn't call her a good person. I think she's bad, but had more. She let Max go at the end in like a cool scene that I like at the end of Thunderdome. So I wouldn't call her good. I think she's, seems like a tyrannical leader to me. But, so again, she's evil, but Dementus takes that to a whole nother level, just how sadistic and just evil he is and what he did to Furiosa. As his name implies, he's demented. But at the same time, as being so evil, Chris Hemsworth plays him so well to make him, you're definitely rooting against him. We want Furiosa, at least I do. I wanted the whole movie, Furiosa, to get her revenge and kill this guy, which she does eventually, it seems, or at least certainly incapacitates him and I guess punishes him for the wrong things he did. I will say that. I don't know if he actually died from what she did to him, but I'm sure eventually he did, or eventually does die. And in the meantime, he certainly paid, or is paying dearly for the evil things he did to her, and I'm sure to countless other people. So he plays a really interesting villain. I really like what Chris Hemsworth did to play Dementus, And the two actresses who did stuff, you know, who played Furiosa in this movie, Anya Taylor-Joy, and then I can't remember the name of the actress who played her as a kid, but she did a great job as well. So those three all did, you know, Chris Hemsworth, Anya Taylor-Joy, and then the actors who played Furiosa as a kid, all three did a just outstanding job playing these characters and bringing them to life, and they make this movie great. Praetorian Jack is really good. I like him a lot. Interesting character. Another kind of character like Furiosa is one of the, you know, small minority of people who still are like honorable and good moral people in this world. So really interesting. Their team up and relationship and romance and stuff, and their kind of just way of fighting together and like I said, kind of being the few good people left in this world, right? Really, really cool. You know, I like the story they have. And like I said, great action, of course, throughout. And really, this adds to Fury Road a lot just by having this background of Furiosa. Everything that happens in Fury Road is even more meaningful. It was already meaningful in Fury Road, but it's even more meaningful because of this movie. And then, as for cons, things I don't like about this movie as much, you know, I think a lot of the biggest problems with this movie are the fact that it's too long and doesn't show enough in certain areas. So, like, for instance, I think the story of, like, or just the whole partnership of Praetorian Jack and Furiosa we don't get enough time with them. I definitely wanted to see, or I definitely want to see more of Praetorian Jack, you know, in his time mentoring Furiosa and teaching her, you know, all kinds of things about fighting and survival and just all kinds of stuff he can, you know, all the stuff he can impart and teach her. So I think a lot more time should have been spent on the mentorship, you know, of Praetorian Jack mentoring Furiosa, and then also the romantic relationship. It was kind of, I mean, this isn't a romance movie, but I mean, a little bit more of like their connection and why, you know, Furiosa finds him so meaningful to her and vice versa, right? So just exploring more of their relationship as far as fighting together, the mentorship aspect, the romance stuff. Again, not saying to turn this into a romance movie or something, but just more overall of their relationship, because then that would have given a lot more weight to when Dementus has Praetorian Jack killed and murdered. Then it would be so much more meaningful and terrible for Furiosa, and would just add more fuel to the fire of just her, you know, wanting to get her revenge on Dementus. And then they didn't even spend enough time, I think, dwelling on. They didn't even really like outright confirm that Praetorian Jack died, but I did look it up, and it sounds like George Miller has definitely said like, yeah, he died. But they didn't even spend enough time kind of like confirming that and having Furiosa's reaction to it. It just felt odd. So overall, their relationship is cool, but definitely I think underdeveloped, and they should have spent more time on that and done more to make that more meaningful, because it is meaningful as it is, but not nearly as meaningful as it could have been had more time been spent developing it. And then, like I said, maybe there's other parts. I have to rewatch it to kind of really hone in on the areas that should be trimmed up, but some of it should have been trimmed up because it's just too long, to the point where by the time you get to the revenge, it's almost like the movie's getting a little tiring. And then, I mean, that's the big payoff, is when, you know, Furiosa finally has her moment. It's just her and Dementus out in the desert, and she can do whatever she wants, you know, to get her revenge. And it's like, it's an awesome moment. It's kind of the culmination of the whole story. But then, like, you're kind of tired by that point because it's been so long. This is by far the longest movie in the series. Fury Road's a much nicer length at 2 hours, whereas this is, I think, 2 hours, 28 minutes, I think. So 2 hours, 28 minutes, it's just too long. Not way too long. I mean, I would have been fine with 2 hours to, like, I don't know, 2:10, something like that. It just needed to be trimmed up just so we could get to that. It's not you want to rush getting to the culmination, right? But at the same time, you don't want it to linger so long that we're almost tired and wanting a break from the movie when arguably the biggest part of the movie is happening, you know? So there's various problems like that in the movie. I'm sure there's others that I'm kind of not thinking of. One thing, yeah, I guess the CGI. This is something I didn't really, I mean, it was there, but it's not really something that bothered me while watching, but I've seen a lot of people online talking about how a lot more CGI and stuff was used in this movie than Fury Road. And, you know, yeah, I like what they did in Fury Road better to, you know, only use CGI sparingly and use it where, you know, it's more just a touch-up or just adding things, and mostly try and make it as real as possible, because you want it to, like, feel and look real, which overall this movie does to me. I wasn't overly bothered by it, but it's there, and I mean, I agree, with what people are saying online. Ideally, you do it more like Fury Road, where you don't use as much CGI and you kind of just use it more where you have to, and you try and make it as real as possible. But I wasn't really bothered by that here, so that's not really much of a con for me. It's a little bit of one, but not much. It didn't really ruin anything for me. So overall, this movie is a lot of fun, and I like it. So, like I said, three-way tie for The Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, and Furiosa Mad Max Saga. All 7 stars, very good movies. Like them all. Now, first place, obviously you all know it already, Mad Max Fury Road. This is easily the best movie in the whole saga for me. For its story, for its characters, for its just action, for its adrenaline, for its stunts, for the visuals, for literally almost everything. I mean, this is just an excellent movie in pretty much almost every way. I mean, it's just really, really well done. A great action movie. The stunt work, I mean, if you read about it online, I mean, it's incredible what went into this, and I need to do more to look into like all the stuff. And I know there's a variety of books you can read. Something like, I don't know, maybe Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, something like that. I heard Sean Chandler talking about that. I watched Sean Chandler. He's a really good movie YouTuber. If you want to watch somebody on YouTube who loves to talk about movies, he's awesome. And he was mentioning in his Mad Max ranking that he read this book and actually another book all about George Miller and stuff to kind of give him some background on the creation of all these movies. And just the stunt work, what I heard from Sean Chandler and just from other stuff online. I mean, man, it's just incredible what went into creating the stunts and doing so much stuff like that's real, like not just some CGI thing or some fake thing. I mean, so many crazy things were done and all the vehicles and everything. I mean, it feels so real because it is real what's happening. These things actually happen, it's just otherworldly, and that's what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to be like another world, and it feels like it because they put in the work to make it like this, and it, like I said, it shows. So it's really a special movie just alone for the stunts and the visuals and all the vehicles and stuff that went into this. But then the story is excellent and the characters are excellent. Furiosa is the star of the show for me easily. She's a great character who's strong, great fighter, capable, but also someone who has vulnerability, someone who is, has emotions, and she's a moral person. She's a good person. She's compassionate, and she is fighting for good in a world where there's a lot of chaos and a lot of bad. She's trying to save people, protect people, and do the right thing. And it's just, she's a great character all around. I mean, and she has drive. She has passion. She has goals, things she wants, like trying to get back to the green place and help the other people around her. And she's just such a great character and someone I'm rooting for and I care about immensely and, want her to succeed and win, So she's absolutely excellent. Nux is another great character. He goes through an awesome arc where at first he's just a, devoted follower of Immortan Joe, just like all these other war boys and so many other people who are either willingly or just out of fear, basically just having to follow Immortan Joe because they love the guy or just devoted to him. Like he's kind of like this, like God figure to them, or because maybe they don't like him, but they're just people they fear him and his power, and they don't feel like they have another choice but just to bow down to the guy, He goes from that, from being totally committed to him to kind of undergoing an arc and eventually helping out and working with Furiosa and the wives and with Max and the others. And it's a great, great story about how he turns around. He's especially forms a connection with one of the wives, and she helps him kind of, mentally recover from, I guess, going from like thinking he was, doing his leader, Immortan Joe, like a great service, to feeling like he failed and his whole life and, journey were totally ruined, and he was going to be denied like everything he was hoping for and all the glory and everything that was ahead, and feeling like his whole life was over and meaningless. She helped kind of bring him out of that and realize, that wasn't the case, and that he could, do some good things and work with them and be with them and, actually be good, and not follow Immortan Joe. And then he ends up making the ultimate sacrifice, and he sacrifices himself to help let the others get away and get to the Citadel. And that was a really emotional moment. Like I felt that, and that is the sign of a character and a story being really meaningful. Is when I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh no, I felt crushed when he died, but it was a very meaningful moment because he did it, for a purpose to help the others get away, and that was just really meaningful. So for him to go from like this kind of devoted, like, just kind of brainwashed, kind of annoying guy to going to from that in the span of 2 hours, going from that to being a hero that I'm rooting for all the way, and I'm sad over his death. That's incredible. That really is incredible. So yeah, Nux is a great character. Love the guy. Rest in peace to him. And he helped out a lot and helped fight for good. That's awesome. And the wives are all good characters. They're all kind of given their own distinct personalities, and they all kind of have their own storylines and connections they form. I like all of them. They're good characters. And then Max, honestly, for me, is actually one of the weaker points of this movie. Not that he's a bad character, but he's a less interesting character than the Mel Gibson version. I think Tom Hardy's version, I don't know if it's, I mean, maybe some of it's Tom Hardy's performance, some of it's just the writing. But with all due respect, I just don't think he's quite as interesting as the Mel Gibson Mad Max. He's just a little flatter and just even less like noble and willing to help other people. But he grows over the course of the movie until eventually he does show some emotion. He does care about Furiosa and helps save her life with a blood transfusion. And I would actually say, I mean, based on what I saw in the movie, I think she would have died without him. So he ends up doing that. But then, of course, at the end, he ends up going off as a loner, just like Max does in all the other movies. He wanders off on his own, which, again, I just find that kind of annoying because it's kind of hard to relate to that. Like, dude, why do you like being alone? I mean, I guess it's just, that's the difference between who he is and who I am. I guess I really love being around people, and he's different. That's okay. I mean, he's a good person still, obviously. He's just very different. I guess it's just harder for me to connect to that, and he's the main character, and this is the Mad Max saga. So it's just, he's the main character of this whole series of movies, right? So it's just harder for me to connect to him than it is for some of the other characters. So that makes him, a little less likable to me personally, but I still like him. He's still a good guy, and I still like his character for sure. So he's still fine in this movie. Just he's outshone by characters like Furiosa and Nux and some of the others, and even the wives in some ways too, But he's still fine, and he still undergoes his own arc, and so he's still good here. And obviously all the villains, I mean, Morton Joe and all the others, I mean, are so despicable and disgusting and evil, and they work great as villains, and it's awesome when they're all defeated and killed. So they definitely serve the world. They're not nearly as interesting as like Dementus or Anti-Entity, but they're still interesting, and they're still very evil. And especially Morton Joe, I think he's definitely a solid villain. He's up there as far as the Mad Max villains go. Maybe a little below Dementus and Anti-Entity, but he's still very interesting and very much intimidating and evil, and it's awesome when he gets beaten and killed, and they show back up the Citadel with his corpse, and everyone celebrates because now they're, finally all free of his tyrannical, evil control, right? So it's awesome. So yeah, I mean, a lot of things I have to say that are great about this movie. Very few complaints. Like I said, some complaints about Max and his portrayal, but he's still not bad. It's just he's a weaker aspect of the movie that's a very good movie. So when all these other characters around him are great, him being still fine, but just not nearly as good, just sticks out more, But he's still fine, and there's so many great things in this movie. I'm going to give this movie a 10 out of 10. And I definitely feel like this is in my top 50 movies of all time. It's definitely not like the best movie I've ever seen, but it's among the top 50. This is a really well done movie in just all respects. So great. And as I've explained already, this movie's awesome. And, it's a movie that really reinvigorated the franchise. And it's impressive that after 30 years, a movie that had so many delays and problems on set and other kinds of issues, it's really impressive this movie turned out as good as it did, and it's really impressive. So, I mean, hats off to George Miller and all the cast and crew, and shout out to everyone involved in all these movies. I mean, at the end of the day, even with whether it's my least favorite in the series, the original Mad Max, or my favorite Fury Road, and everything in between, this is a really cool franchise, and movies really, and just entertainment stuff in general. It's really awesome because it provides just something awesome for all of us, myself included, in our lives. Something fun, just an escape, really cool, thing to enjoy just for fun, and give life some extra spice and just enjoy it. And I love watching movies and TV shows and discussing them with my friends and family, and it's really cool, this whole universe that's been created. So, thank you to George Miller and to all the cast and crew, everybody from the top to the bottom, every single person involved, no matter how big or small. Thank you to all of you for all your work and, whether you worked on one or multiple or all these movies. Thank you all for all your work to bring this whole really cool saga to life. This is really cool. So thank you to all of you. Appreciate all of your hard work. And that's the end of my ranking. So it's my final ranking is Mad Max, the original movie, in fifth, and then a three-way tie for second with Thunderdome, or with The Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, and Furiosa. And then in first place, I have Fury Road. So 3 stars for Mad Max, the original, 7 stars for the three-way tie with The Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, and Furiosa, and then 10 stars. One of the best movies I've ever seen, among the best 50 movies I've ever seen, for Fury Road. So that's all I have to say about my ranking. What do you all think? I want to hear your thoughts down below. Who are your favorite characters? Love to hear. Like, obviously Max, like I've said, he's still cool despite some of my problems with him. A lot of other cool characters, and a lot of characters who unfortunately have to pay the ultimate sacrifice and die. A lot of cool people, and the Papagallo guy, the warrior woman / female warrior, and Nux, and so many other heroes who have to lay down their lives or end up, laying down their lives in the course of fighting for the good of humanity that remains, and trying to keep, the good of humanity alive and thriving, right? So really inspirational. I like that. It's really cool to see that even in this chaotic world, that there still is good in humanity, and there's still good people fighting for each other and fighting together, and trying to move forward and, keep not only good human society alive, but build it back after, a terrible, apocalypse, right? So it's really cool just across this whole saga to see that story unfold. And yeah, so definitely let me know in the comments below. I don't want to run on too long. Sorry, everyone. But definitely let me know in the comment section below how you would rank these movies on my star rating scale. How would you, what star ratings would you give all these? It's all whole numbers, right? What numbers would you give all the movies? How would you rank them? And maybe on your own star rating system, using your own system, how would you rate all these movies? Who are your favorite characters? Who are your favorite, good guys? Who are your favorite heroes? Who are your favorite villains? All the stuff. Let me know in the comments section below. And thank you all so much for watching. Appreciate you all. Thank you all so much.